Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the show. In just a moment here, we'll hit the news of the day, which is really a deep dive on the growing issue of nuclear verdicts in the trucking industry. And speaking of growing issues, that'll lead us into our next topic as well, cargo theft. We know that the number of cases has skyrocketed in recent years, but there's still a lot we don't know about the issue. That's why the American Transportation Research Institute recently launched a survey, and Jeffrey Short, ATRI's vice president, will join us to explain what we know and how they're working to figure out what we don't quite know yet. Then Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine stops by with all the latest truck parking news from around the nation, and then we'll close things out with all the latest spot market data, courtesy of Brent Hutto of Truckstop. So, lots to get to, but first things first. Here's the news. We're going to spend some time today talking about nuclear verdicts. We had two big ones in the last week or so, and joining us to break down what we know is Jamie Jones, managing editor of Landline Magazine. Jamie, always good to see you. Welcome.
Hey, good to be here, Scott.
So I want to start with a quick rundown of the most recent nuclear verdict here. It's against the trailer manufacturer Wabash National. We reported earlier this week that a jury in Missouri found Wabash liable for $462 million in damages for a deadly crash that happened back in 2019. We had two people killed after driving into the back of a model year 2005 Wabash trailer that had slowed down for construction. There's so many ins and outs of this story, Jamie, I almost don't know where to start. But I suppose we can start with the fact that when the trailer was manufactured in 2004, and Wabash made this argument in the case, that trailer was in compliance with regulatory standards that existed at the time. The jury there in Missouri apparently didn't take that into account or didn't think it mattered, I suppose. But that's a big one for me, and I think a valid point.
Well, it really is a valid point, and I think what we need to start with in explaining this to everybody is that this is more of a product liability case. So it is very different from a typical crash lawsuit, if you will. And that's what really messes with your logic. So anybody who wants to go at this from a very logical, sensible approach, you're going to struggle a little.
The burden of proof is different.
It's very different. And so, you're taught from the time you start driving that, almost all the time if you're hit in the rear that it's it's the person who hit you. It's their fault. And truckers should know this more than anybody because of all the rear-end collisions, because of speed differentials and everything else that we face, that's not the case. And they find ways around it, and these product liabilities are one way to do that. So you had these two individuals in a vehicle that was going about 55 miles an hour that hit the back of a 2005 Wabash trailer, okay? Neither of the individuals were wearing seatbelts. Mm-hmm. There is some question about how sober the driver was. Mm-hmm. There was a 0.081 blood alcohol content that came into play, or we would have thought would have come into play.
Right.
So there's just things like this, that somebody made a mistake, okay? Probably. I mean, I don't think anybody intentionally runs into the back of a trailer.
I think that is safe to say, yes.
So they did the bare minimum, as in nothing, in terms of seatbelts, driving sober, those types of things. But again, none of that came into play. Instead, the lawyers, and I love a good history lesson. You know me. I'll sit there and I will derail a landline meeting faster than anybody to give them the history on a regulation. But this goes back to the 60s.
Yeah.
Actually, their arguments, the plaintiffs' arguments go back to the 60s when trailer manufacturers were lobbying hard against rear underrides and these different things because there was probably, manufacturing issues. Who knows what the full story was, because we're talking before some people were even alive probably arguing this.
Yeah.
And then Wabash didn't even exist when all of these standards were out. And then, so they start in 1985. So they weren't even privy to these arguments. Then in 1985, the company starts. Fast forward 20 more years, they build a trailer that meets standards at the time of manufacture.
Yep.
They met the standards. and then they still get hit with a $500 million lawsuit. It's $462 million, but come on, that's $500 million.
Yeah, you might as well round up there. Yeah, and I don't know if we know at this point what the implications of something like this are, but it does feel like there will be implications moving forward. Wabash is going to fight this through legal means. I think we can bet on that.
Oh, 100%. It's going up the court food chain.
Yeah, but again, what that looks like and what the implications are, so many questions here. But as you point out, there are so many questions about why this verdict came back in the way that it did, and we'll keep an eye on it. And Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine has a great write-up on landline.media with all the ins and outs of this, because there are so many things that we can't get to in this short amount of time.
Oh, 100%.
So go check out that story for more details there. I do want to talk about one other nuclear verdict. Last week, we reported on the Texas Supreme Court deciding to hear a $100 million case. This one involving a crash that killed a child, unfortunately. This involved a Werner truck. An investigation concluded it was caused by the driver of the pickup truck. A state trooper who investigated the crash concluded the truck driver didn't do anything wrong, but yet we've got a jury finding Werner 70% liable here. It's a troubling trend, and I know we've talked about nuclear verdicts before, but in this particular case, too, it just leaves you scratching your head as to, why are we finding Werner at fault for something that they had no fault for?
Yeah, and, a lot of it, just not to speak specifically on Werner, but so much case law has muddied up what the original intent of laws on the books are that we're going to see this. And this is another reason why we watch tort reform so carefully. And there's so many states that are looking at ways to get into tort reform, because $100 million when the jury hung their verdict against Werner on the fact that nothing went wrong in this particular crash, but you guys don't have a really great record, so we're going to punish you anyway. And that's kind of how that one came out.
Yeah, and again, the Texas Supreme Court is going to hear this case. We'll see what they decide, and they may come down on the side of kind of what we're talking about here is, we're looking at one case. We shouldn't be looking at other things here and there.
Right.
But again, it just raises questions about what are we doing here? And make no mistake, these big numbers, these are big companies. They're going to take a big hit, but this has an effect on everybody.
Oh, 100%. I don't even know that Wabash could withstand a $500 million judgment against it that's upheld. But other trailer manufacturers may be going, peace out. It's not worth it to us. So, these are the things when you start raising insurance rates, when you start playing with anything, it's the pass along of costs. But when we look at this case law that's coming out and these nuclear verdicts, it is something that is troubling. It's particularly hard for truck drivers because I don't know if you guys realize it, but everybody thinks you drive giant piggy banks. So, that's just a big win going down the road for a lot of attorneys. So this is a scary thing that we are going to keep a very close eye on as laws change and these cases continue to progress.
Absolutely. More to come on this. Jamie, we appreciate it. We encourage everybody to go to landline.media to check out these stories and more. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
A few more headlines from the trucking industry now, starting with the Prove It Act. This is a bill that would force federal agencies to consider small businesses like owner-operators when crafting new regulations. The House Committee on Small Business on Tuesday advanced the Prove It Act, otherwise known as H.R. 7198. It now moves on for further consideration. Also, Wabash National's bad week continues. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has filed a lawsuit against the trailer manufacturer. The agency is accusing Wabash of pregnancy discrimination. The EEOC says the company failed to accommodate an employee's known pregnancy-related limitations, forcing her to resign. This is the first federal lawsuit claiming violation of the new Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. More trucking news 24 hours a day over on our website, landline.media. We'll step out for a moment, but after the break, we're going to get to the bottom of ATRI's efforts to find out what's driving the cargo theft problem. We're back after this.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Cargo theft is a growing problem that doesn't seem to be letting up. But exactly how bad is it? What are the thieves targeting? And what locations are the worst in terms of the amount of cargo theft? You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm Scott Thompson. Welcome back to the program. The American Transportation Research Institute is on a mission to find all of that information out. And to do that, they've put out a survey on the topic. Landline Now host Mark Reddick spent some time recently discussing the survey with Jeffrey Short, Vice President of ATRI.
ATRI recently launched a survey on cargo theft. What was the reason that ATRI decided to look into this issue?
Well, cargo theft has been a growing issue since the pandemic. And we've been hearing that anecdotally, and there are also statistics out there. So last year, actually, I should say at the beginning of this year, our research advisory committee voted to have this one of our top research priorities. And since it rose to the top, we took it on as quickly as possible. And part of that research is a cargo theft survey. The survey goes out to both motor carriers. Drivers can certainly take it. Owner-operators can certainly take this survey as well. And what we want to hear is how these thefts are happening and that sort of thing. There's also a survey on there for brokers because brokers are falling victim to some of the more sophisticated crimes out there, and we want to hear from them as well.
Okay. I know another thing that spurred this in part was an FBI report on the issue. I'm wondering if you can offer us up some highlights of that report.
ATRI's Research Advisory Committee actually cited some FBI statistics, and those statistics indicate that $15 to $30 billion a year is lost to cargo theft annually. Hence, it rose very high to the top.
Okay. There were several categories of information that you indicated ATRI is trying to quantify in this survey. And I know it was types, frequency, geography, and commodities targeted. Can you go into some more detail in terms of what you mean specifically by each of these categories?
Many of the issues we've heard about have to do with just simply straight theft. Let's say it's outside of a port. Let's say it's in a warehouse area. But we also see folks pretending to be a motor carrier and trying to pick up goods or redirecting those goods to a different location, even getting a third party involved. Double brokering is certainly a way in which folks can do this, and they're just stealing an entire load of cargo and nobody knows where it goes, and everyone is left shaking their head at the end of the day. How did this happen? Certainly there's pilferage, there's the petty kind of theft, folks breaking through fences, opening up trailers and taking a couple things out of the back. Some carriers call that shopping. I've heard that term, to see what's in there, see if they want to come back and get a larger load, for instance. We definitely want to figure out what the most targeted products are out there so that we can inform this is the kind of thing you want to keep an eye out for. Anecdotally, of course, that's going to be stuff that can be quickly resold, maybe at flea markets, that sort of thing. Shoes, toys, that sort of stuff comes to mind. We're also looking to get an estimate on how much is stolen in each type of category. Let's say how much a dollar figure as far as pilferage, a dollar figure for straight theft of cargo of a truck, how much equipment is actually being stolen as well, and that sort of thing.
Okay. In a release, ATRI mentioned that cargo theft, and I want to quote here, has evolved from thieves simply stealing cargo to sophisticated impersonation schemes. I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through that. What form was cargo theft typically taking in the past, and what is it evolving into?
So in the past, it may be just someone stealing a truck full of goods, or someone stealing a pallet out of the back of a truck that has been sitting there for a long time, or just stealing some goods out of that truck. What it has evolved into is, I guess I can give you a general example. You have some freight that's being brokered, and someone comes along and says, all right, I am this motor carrier, here's my insurance, but it's all fake. And they take that load. And then maybe they get another trucking company to actually move that load, and they redirect the load. Let's say if it was going to Massachusetts, instead they redirect it to California, for instance. And what ends up happening is when everyone figures out what has happened, all the goods are out of the truck. It's been delivered to a warehouse. The people are gone at the warehouse. The goods are gone. And finally, the pieces are put together that, it wasn't actually this motor carrier. And that insurance was actually fake. It looked real, that sort of thing.
Let's get into the survey a little bit itself. Can you give us some examples of what sort of information the survey is asking truckers for?
As an example, we want to know what type of location these incidents are happening. Is it at a customer pickup location, delivery location? Is it at your terminal? Is it at a truck stop, rest area, other parking location? We are asking what the most frequently stolen goods are, of course, as I mentioned earlier. We're looking for strategies you might use, and we're looking to put together best practices for ways to kind of thwart cargo theft. Do you always park in a lighted area, for instance? That sort of thing.
I'm wondering if you've looked into other research on this topic, and if so, what are some of the important facts that you managed to glean from other research?
We are in the process of doing our literature review. Certainly we'll cover those sort of things in our report, but I can't speak to those at this point.
Okay. Has ATRI itself looked into this issue before?
We have taken secondary looks. We haven't put out a report specifically on cargo theft in the past.
I'm assuming that ATRI has heard from motor carriers about the issue, and I'm sure that's part of what spurred you to look into it. Does the problem tend to be more frequent with larger carriers, with smaller carriers? Is there any division in terms of size of carrier and frequency of theft?
I don't believe so far that there is. I don't think larger carriers or smaller carriers are being targeted more often. I think it more has to do with what it is they're hauling. If something is an easy target for a thief, something that they can quickly turn around and make money on, that's the kind of thing they're going to go after. They're not going to go after, let's say, bulk stone, right? Or dirt. Nobody's going to steal dirt. I'm sure it's happened out there before, but it's going to be more likely high value, smaller goods that can be moved on the black market at some point.
Now, some carriers, especially in today's environment, may be reluctant to offer up information of this nature due to security concerns or other things like privacy issues. What can you tell them in terms of the security of this information if they take part?
If you're part of this, we are not going to disclose anyone's name, anything about individual trucking companies, drivers, brokerages. We're not going to disclose anything. We have a long record of being the trucking industry's trusted party in collecting this information and delivering aggregated information in a report format So just high-level statistics will be in our report. I'll tell you, we have almost 100 surveys back so far from motor carriers and brokers, which is great. We're looking forward to getting as much information back as possible from larger companies and smaller companies. So certainly the owner-operators who are out there, we want to hear from you. Definitely, if you've had a cargo theft in the past year or two, we want to hear all about it and how that came about.
How do people take part in the survey?
So they can go to our website, that's truckingresearch.org, and there is a link there to take part in the survey. You can go online and take the survey, or you can print out a PDF and send that back to me. My email address is on the form, and that is the best way to take part. It is truckingresearch.org, and it'll be one of the top things there you click on the front page.
What's the deadline for people to take part in this? When are you going to kind of close off your collection of information?
We're going to close things off at the end of September, and then we're going to start doing our analysis then.
Outside of the obvious, and we've talked about some of the information that you're gathering directly, but once you aggregate this and once you kind of have a picture of the facts, I'm curious what ATRI is hoping to learn outside of those obvious answers to the questions.
We are hoping to figure out ways that folks who move freight can work with other entities out there to tackle this problem. Is that local government? I think so. I think better ways to work with local police departments, state police departments, and the federal government as well on tackling this issue. I've heard over and over from motor carriers, they're like, all right, my truck has been stolen. It's in a different state. And even if I contact that jurisdiction, the truck's going to move out of that jurisdiction. I'm based here. I don't even know who to contact. They're not familiar with, let's say, the local jurisdiction at a truck stop on the other side of the country. That's really to the advantage of thieves. Is there a better way to do this? Certainly sharing data that's going on out there and taking that data to the next level. Hopefully we'll be able to spell out a path forward for that.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you very much for the information. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
That was host Mark Reddick talking with Jeffrey Short, the Vice President of the American Transportation Research Institute. We obviously thank Jeffrey for his time. And we should also mention that the Cargo Theft Survey is one of 2 surveys the Institute has out right now. The other is an annual occurrence where ATRI asks trucking industry stakeholders to rank their top issues of concern. The input will go into a report that ranks the issues by motor carriers and by professional drivers. It also includes best strategies for addressing each issue. Last year, compensation topped the list of concerns for drivers, followed by the truck parking crisis and fuel prices. For carriers, on the other hand, the top concerns were the lagging economy, the so-called driver shortage, and lawsuit abuse reform. And making the list for the first time last year, zero-emission vehicles. The proliferation of autonomous vehicles also made the list there. ATRI says any concern you have is valid for submission, whether that be driver compensation, detention time, traffic congestion, or the ones we just mentioned, you name it. You've got a little more time to get your survey answers in. The deadline for this year's survey is September 27th. The results will be released as part of the American Trucking Association's Management Conference and Exhibition being held in Nashville, Tennessee on October 12th. If you'd like to take the Top Concern Survey or the Cargo Theft Survey, you can find both on ATRI's website, truckingresearch.org. Again, that's truckingresearch.org, and we'll also have a link at landlinenow.com. With that, we'll step out for a quick break. I'm Scott Thompson, and Landline Now is back in just a moment.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide.
Repair secured. Load assured.
Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a cat scale.
A blank space on many maps with the distance between parking spaces seemingly as great as infinity. It is the boundary that separates safety and security from the dangers of the road, the space between electronic signs and a place in which to rest. It is not a dimension of the imagination, but instead the reality faced by truck drivers every single day. It is a place we call the parking zone. Here are your guides for this journey into parking news good and bad, Scott Thompson and Tyson Fisher.
Thanks, Mark. Scott here, Tyson there. Good to see you, Tyson.
Good being here.
Let's mix things up a bit here and start with the private sector. We've got two companies merging to form what they're calling the largest truck parking operator in the world. We haven't fact-checked that yet, but hey, that's what they're claiming. So what's going on here?
So yeah, those two companies are We Realize and StoreMyTruck.com. Those are the two companies. I had to fact-check that because right now there's several locations. So first of all, Realize has 13 lots, mostly in the South and Nevada. Store My Trucks has 71 locations, also mostly in the South. Pretty heavy concentration in Atlanta, which is where it's based. But the two companies, they plan to have more than 200 locations by the end of this year. And then I'm sure they plan on expanding even further beyond that. Like I said, they're mostly in the South, but that expansion includes outside of the South, like Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and the Northeast. So basically everywhere but the Midwest. But that's by design. So that's that's their business model, which is focused on parking near the major metro areas and the busier interstates. And so, to be fair, that's where truck parking is most needed. I think most of the Midwest states, there isn't as much of a truck parking crisis as there is in the more congested, Northeast and stuff like that. So one thing I found interesting was a statement that the founder and CEO of We Realize made, Cody Horchak, I think is his name. Here's a quote from him saying, quote, "The need for additional truck parking across the country continues to compound with each passing day, and it has become clear that privately owned companies are able to meet the need much faster than government-led initiatives."
Makes sense.
Which is something that we've been saying on here for a while. So, this announcement was made during the National Association of Industrial Outdoor Storage, which that is a thing now. That is a thing. It was just founded in 2022, but I mentioned that because it tells us how much that industry has exploded, this industrial outdoor storage real estate thing. And so, we realized that was just founded just last year. What we're seeing is more and more people are taking advantage of, the government's failure to provide sufficient parking for truckers. So it's basically capitalism hard at work here. So the good news is we're getting the parking that we need. The bad news is it ain't free. So
yeah, and I hear a lot of resistance to paid parking for understandable reasons. But clearly there's a demand out there if they're expanding and it looks like business is going well there. And as we've talked about before, it's going to take, it's one of these, it's going to take a village kind of things. Right. It's going to be public, private sector kind of coming together. And as you mentioned, until we get the government to push something here and get something across the finish line, then everybody else will be left to pick up the pieces and kind of put the patchwork together here. Let's move on to an interesting story out of Dayton, Ohio, or at least the Dayton, Ohio area, where there was some back and forth over building a new truck facility in Vandalia. There will not be a truck stop, but there will be truck parking, apparently.
Right. So, the city of Vandalia, Ohio, they have given preliminary approval for a truck parking facility near Interstate 75. So that includes 20 parking spaces. So, the city officials, it was weird. They were quick to point out that they approved of a parking facility and not a truck stop. So basically what that means is the facility will not provide amenities like food, showers, fuel pumps, stuff like that. It basically concrete, paint, park your truck here type of thing. So, but more importantly, the conditional use permit that this company was granted, it prohibits truck drivers from remaining on site overnight.
That's not a good thing.
So it's not. So basically, your truck is welcome. You are not. That's basically my maybe not so kind interpretation of this, but that's one way to look at it. So that's the thing that we're seeing a lot across the nation, which is this. We're okay to have these parking facilities, paid parking facilities, but what they don't want is just. Again, this like what is largely considered a truck stop. So basically, again, outdoor storage facility is basically what we're talking about.
It is free parking though, right? Or is this isn't paid? Is it?
Actually, I do believe this one is going to be paid. It is well.
Paid. Okay.
So yeah. Again, it's kind of weird. I think there's a fine line between truck parking and then outdoor storage. We can kind of make a distinction if you really want to kind of like split hairs here. But at either rate, it is a place to park your truck if needed.
Outdoor storage is a weird way to describe parking a truck. I'm just trying to get my head around that too.
But they are being lumped together, and that's the interesting thing. So these entrepreneurs, the private sector, who is jumping on this opportunity for a lack of truck parking, they're creating these lots that's obviously designed to address the truck parking need, but to cast a wider net, you can also store your RVs there or other larger commercial vehicles. So they don't want to just, pigeonhole themselves into just truck parking. Oh, you have an RV or a boat? Yeah, that can come here too.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
As long as you're willing to pay.
Exactly right.
Let's move to the Pacific Northwest here to Olympia, Washington, more specifically. And no surprise here. We're seeing some pushback there against a proposed truck stop from the Chehalis tribe. And it's because, and this is a little bit different, I guess, they apparently don't want competition. That's what's behind this.
Yeah, so the truck stop in Chehalis, Washington. This is just off of Interstate 5 in that portion of the state. Yeah, it's getting resistance, and as you pointed out, it's not the residents that we're kind of used to seeing. So the Chehalis tribe they're trying to stop the proposed truck stop, and they're citing zoning and traffic issues. However, the attorneys for the truck stop developer has pointed out that the tribe owns a travel plaza less than a mile down the road from where this proposed truck stop will be. So they argue that this is more about stifling competition than any legitimate zoning claim. And so the Board of County Commissioners in Thurston County, they've already denied the tribe's challenge. So what the tribe is trying to do now is that they're appealing that denial to their claims. So not sure what's going to happen with that. What I do know is the county board is poised to issue a decision on that like any day now, sometime this week. So I'll keep an eye out on that, and we'll follow up on that accordingly.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's nice. Again, in a weird way that it's not NIMBYism. That's kind of
right.
The story here. It's again a bit of a different angle here, and you can understand where the tribe is coming from if they're worried about competition. But I would probably say that there's enough room for both of them, I would guess. But hey,
sure.
I'm not from that area. But we'll see what happens there. You'll keep us updated, as you said there. Let's stay in Washington State here, but move to the eastern part of the state, where it looks like several truck stops are being proposed.
Yeah, like mini truck stops.
Okay.
So this is the Tri-Cities area in Washington State, which is Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland. So this is near Interstate 82, just north of Interstate 84, that portion of the state. So that area right now is experiencing an economic boom, I guess you can call it. Lots of plants, warehouses, I guess industrial areas is what's happening over here. So that includes 2 Amazon fulfillment centers, a dairy plant, UPS warehouse, FedEx warehouse. So we're talking lots of truck traffic being so you have the surge in industrial development, but they didn't build an infrastructure to address the surge in truck traffic. So what's happening is multiple developers are trying to fill that need. So one is what's called the Keene City Truck Stop. Love's is trying to get in on the action here. This one's weird. A Missouri-based company wants to build a Big Apple travel center in Washington State. So we got kind of like 3 different states at play.
Yeah,
you know?
Talk about competition. Yeah.
Right, but that's another one. Then the Colville Tribe Reservation wants to have a Pascal. So we're talking about 4 different travel stop proposals in this Tri-City area. So what's interesting is that currently overnight parking is not allowed per city code. I think that was in Pasco. But the city's planning commission, they will be holding a hearing next week to draft an ordinance to basically pave the way for overnight truck parking at these travel centers. So yeah, they see the need and they know that this is something they can't just ignore, and so they're pretty much addressing it head on. So it's good stuff.
Especially if this region is growing as much as you say it is with the industrial developments there. They're going to need people to be able to park overnight, obviously, for obvious reasons. We talked about NIMBYism earlier. It does still exist out there, and we've got an example in Louisa County, Virginia. A Love's is they were trying to get a Love's up and built there, but looks like it's getting some pushback.
Yeah, this is in Louisa County, Virginia. So yeah, the Louisa Board of Supervisors recently voted to deny Love's proposal for a new truck stop. It would have been right off I-64, just west of I-95. So this is pretty standard NIMBY opposition with concerns about, traffic and environment, stuff like that. Love's made several adjustments to kind of address those issues, but this is one of those situations where, the residents, they made up their minds. They know that they don't want it, so there's no compromising here. It's just the way it is. Now, the good news is the County Board of Supervisors did leave the door open. So what they said was that they like Love's, the company, and they are fine with them being in Louisa County, just not that specific location. So kind of extended an invitation. It's like, you can still be here, just
find a different place.
Find a different location,
perhaps,
So we'll see what they do with that information.
Well, let's hit the lightning round here, Tyson, with a couple minutes to go here. 3 more stories we'll try to get to. Crystal Lake City, Illinois. There's a trucking company finding a loophole there for their expansion plans, it looks like.
Yeah, they've been fighting this for a while. Earlier this year, NVA Transportation denied a permit to expand to 324 truck parking spaces. They found a loophole. Basically, they found a way to revamp their plans that does not require city council approval. It will result in a little fewer truck parking spaces, but not by much, just a little under 300. But yeah, long story short, they found the loophole, and the city acknowledged that. There is one caveat here, is that they can do it this way, but there will be no sleeping accommodations, no sleeping in trucks. So no overnight truck parking again. So that is the caveat on that one.
Gotcha. Louisiana, we've got new truck parking near an inland port there.
Yeah, this one's in the port of Cateau-Beaujeu in Shreveport, Louisiana. Basically, this fulfills parking needs since Shreveport banned truck parking in the neighborhoods. So this is 152 truck parking spaces. Again, that's the good news. The bad news is no daily overnight parking, monthly rates only, between $150 and $200. But this is property owned by the port, and this is mostly for those who do regular business at the port.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. We don't have a lot of time, Tyson, but so far so good for truck parking. Compromise in Surprise, Arizona.
Yeah, Surprise, Arizona. They banned truck parking in the city, but the compromise was you can't park anywhere that you want, but you can park here. So they gave designated truck parking. And long story short, everybody's happy. Truck traffic has dropped dramatically. Truckers have a place to park.
Yeah.
Just a good model for other cities who are thinking about banning truck parking. This is the way to do it. Give them somewhere to go.
Nice to see some compromise out there.
Very good, yes.
Tyson, it's always a pleasure, and we will see you soon.
Always a pleasure being here.
That was Tyson Fisher. This is Landline Now, and there's more of it right after this.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
If you're running ultra-low sulfur diesel in your vehicle, make sure you are prepared and protected all winter long with Howes Diesel Treat, the #1 anti-gel product in North America from the 100-plus year trusted brand Howes Products.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline now, welcome back. Time now for our weekly spot market update, and for that, we turn to our old friend, Brent Hutto of Truckstop. Brent, how you doing?
Scott, I'm doing fantastic. I am somewhere in between Indianapolis and Cleveland in the heartland, some part of the heartland of America. So I've seen lots of corn, lots of fields and stuff, and pulled over to be on the program with you today. So I'm excited. I love getting out and love seeing trucks going up and down the highway. I've been at a couple conferences, and so it's good stuff. Just love being out there talking to people that are in freight.
And you're not lost. We don't need to send help, right? You're doing okay.
No, well,
okay.
As far as I know, I'm not lost. I mean,
Not yet.
Yeah. So no, I think I'm pretty good. Thanks
That's
for
good. I'm glad you're safe and sound, and that's good. So that frees us up to talk about the spot market conditions here, and let's jump right into the latest data here. What are they? What are the numbers that you're looking at here, first of all, and more importantly, what are they telling us about the conditions out there right now?
Yeah, well, thank you again. As always, it's so great to get on and talk about the spot market because that's where owner-operators typically operate and play to run their businesses. And so the spot market it hasn't changed much, and it's not going to fundamentally change much. And I'll just say this right ahead of time. It's not going to fundamentally change a lot through the end of the year. And I just say just to set expectations for everyone. And what I mean by that is that rates are going to continue to creep up, certainly going into holiday season with natural increases during that part of the season, but there's going to be some increases because of just the marketplace in general, because it's been sort of on the bottom part of the pricing for a while. But the pressure in the marketplace has been about the same, mid-50s. It's called the Market Demand Index. It's something we started producing, almost 20 years ago. Let's talk about the balance between freight and trucks in the market. Rates have been around, have stayed around, and are going to stay around, but they're going to probably eke up a bit, even though fuel's been coming down. Around $2.20 to $2.30 have been the rates. That's overall. Vans about $1.95, somewhere in there. Flatbeds of $2.25, reefers about $2.40. So, but those are specific rates, guys. That's what I always say, and I love to talk about this with owner operators. That's just the posted rate in the market. Your negotiated rate, if you're good at what you do, or if you got a good relationship with the freight provider, whether it's a broker or a shipper, you should be able to negotiate above that because of the marketplace. Now, it is a competitive market because of some of the challenges with the oversupply of trucks in the market. But either way, that's a beginning point, a good reference point. Fuel kind of has stayed where it is at 44 cents. It's only 6 cents above before Russia invaded Ukraine, which is always sort of that marker. And then the outbound tender reject is the contract market. So that's really where spot market freight comes from, the overall marketplace, and it's kind of driven by the contract marketplace because it's the freight that the bigger fleets and the medium-sized fleets, those with like 100 to 10,000 trucks, they just don't want to haul it because it's difficult. This will give the opportunity to owner operators in the spot market. But the pressure index out there for that is the outbound tender reject index put out by Sonar, and it's been in the mid-4s, which is good because if it's at 5 and above, more freight moves into the spot market, prices go up for owner-operators. So that's kind of where we are, and I'll say this, and this is sort of in light of what was released lately about the Federal Reserve looking to cut interest rates and drop them by anywhere from a quarter of a point to half a point, which has been meaningful, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's just kind of in light of where the system is today. Yeah.
You talk about negotiating there, and I think that's a great point that really can't be stressed enough every time we talk, and we talk with other folks out there. But it's also worth mentioning that this depends a lot, too, on where you're doing business, right? Because certain regions are always, hotter than others. It kind of goes here and there and kind of moves around a bit. But as I'm looking at the numbers here, courtesy of Truckstop, and you look at the regions and you break down the numbers there, in terms of load availability and rates. I notice quite a few decreases in pretty much both across the board here. What jumps out to you when you look at the regional numbers that are out there?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you saying that too. Just regionally, I look at that's in a region. There's freight in lanes that move at a much higher than that. We'll talk about it in a second. But I just look at it regionally, and so when you look at like West Coast, there's a lot of freight that's coming out of the West Coast. Even though year over year the availability is down 10%, and week over week it's dropped because we're the sort of natural bottom part of the summer curve, and it's going to start to come back up. But the idea is that there's different parts of freight that comes out of the West Coast that pays a lot better. And the good thing about owner-operators, providing you can get the right trailer to move it, you can move a lot of different types of freight. But kind of what stands out to me is that just the Mountain Central has been up 4.6% over year, even though it was pretty depressed week over week. So the thing about the spot market is know where you are in it, know where to look at the data, know how to utilize a system that was designed for carriers. Our platform was designed for carriers, and know how to sort it, look at it, and analyze it so you can find the best freight in that lane. And so that's just from a freight availability standpoint. When you look at rates, there's minor changes week over week. But year over year, the rates have dropped, but they're not dropping near what they did last year, and that's a good thing. And but once they start to stabilize at the bottom, they should start to move back up. And that's why I just say, okay, from now until the end of the year, rates should start to move back up across the board, whether you haul dry van, flatbed, or reefer, or specialized. I mean, that's actually a different part of the marketplace. Specialized kind of has its own pricing to it. But I think the thing that I just want to encourage owner-operators over and over and over is just know how to use a system that you pay for to be able to look at the data the right way so you can find the best freight. And it moves around geographically depending on the season that we're in.
Zooming back out to the big picture here, you mentioned the Fed and interest rates earlier.
Yes,
inflation does seem to be easing up here. We just had a report that it's at its lowest level in 3 years. I just saw before I came in here. As you look at the conditions out there, we always are looking for nuggets to kind of put out there for owner-operators in particular in terms of the market, the economy, everything. What do you see out there right now that you think owner-operators in particular should be aware of?
Yeah, a couple things. So I'm at this conference. I was at the conference on Monday and Tuesday, the FTR Intelligence Conference. They're a freight forecasting company. They're the oldest in the market. I would say they're the best in the market because they look at the whole marketplace. And there was a lot of talk about the different parts of the market, the contract part of the market and the spot part of the market, which, by the way, they're interconnected. There's no separate there. They're connected to each other. Where contract freight has gotten to a profitability on the contract end on one-way long-haul freight, which is spot market freight, has gotten to a marginal percentage as far as from what their expectations are, and that it'll probably drop a little bit more to the end of the year, which means spot market will come back up. And you kind of see that happening already because the spot market rates over the last 8 weeks have been above the previous year, which shows a building of strength. And so when we talk about inflation in the market, inflation affects all of us. It doesn't matter whether you're working at a hotel, like I'm sitting in the parking lot right now at a hotel making this phone call, or whether you're driving a truck. But inflation hurts all of us because it devalues our purchase ability. So inflation has kind of gotten to a point where our Federal Reserve, the people that kind of control, whether or not we're going to have, certain type of inflationary periods or deflationary periods, and they do this to try to avoid recession. And they've done a really great job since 1980, but they've kind of got it to a point. This is why they're looking at cutting the interest rate. They've gotten to a more balanced point in the market where there's okay, we have enough stability. Okay, let's cut it anywhere from a quarter of a point to a half point. And that's meaningful in the market. But the issue going on right now, Scott, is that the pivotal question going on is that recession has become a little bit more of an interest in the market than it was, say, 2 months ago. And it's because of the job reports. Now, it's still not above 50%. In other words, the likeliness of recession, remember, that's just likeliness. So likeliness of recession is still not above 50%, which is good for our market because really the marketplace overall, the overall American economy has been pretty stable with right at 2%, 2.1% growth of GDP, which if we stay in those levels, we won't have recession. But either way, truckers got to deal with it. We're not going to have some big boom. It's going to break out, and rates are going to be 20% or 30% higher. It's going to be very
slow,
very
and steady
gradual. So this
rise,
is why
yeah.
I look for owner-operators. Look at your data sources, understand where freight's moving, and so you can negotiate the best rate possible for the freight that you're moving today.
Excellent advice as always, Brent. We'll have to leave it there, but we'll talk to you again soon. We appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Our thanks once again to Brent Hutto of Truckstop, and that's our show for today. We thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.